Chapter 18: Procrastination, Perfection, and a Polish Beer Garden. In order to kick ass, you must first lift up your foot. Sincero, author, coach, self-quoter. One of my first jobs out of college was production coordinator for the Ethnic Folk Arts Festival, which was put on by a little nonprofit group in New York City. I heard about the position opening up from a friend and decided I had to have the job even though I'd never produced a thing in my life and find folk art to be fairly yawnable. It looked like fun anyway. They worked out of a funky loft in Tribeca, knew a lot about music, brought their dogs to work, and the festival I'd be working on gathered musicians, dancers, and artists from around the globe and brought them together in a Polish beer garden in Queens for a big fat party, which meant men in skirts and free sausage and beer. So I put together a resume that listed such achievements as produced plays in college, i.e., demanded my friends show up to watch my boyfriend act, started several organizations in high school, started a sledding team that had no competition and only one meeting where we spent most of our time figuring out how to score some beer, worked at my college radio station, hung around while my friend DJ'd. Then I got all dressed up in some business casuals that I borrowed from my mom that didn't fit and marched off to my interview. A couple of hours later, me and my big mouth had a new job. That night, I laid awake in wide-eyed horror. My God, what have I done? I'm a monster! These sweet, big-hearted, sandal-wearing people just handed me a coffee can full of money that they spent an entire year collecting for this festival, and I'm the lying fathead who's going to blow it. I thought about turning myself in, but, unwilling to turn down a good party, went for it instead and wound up working harder for them than I had ever worked in my life. I decided that I'd rise to the occasion, that I would do whatever it took to make this the best damn festival that Polish beer garden had ever seen, and I pulled it off with flying colors if I do say so myself. I got all 27 of my unemployed friends to hand out flyers and take tickets in exchange for the aforementioned free sausage and beer, herded the unruly polka dancers into their places on time, got the latke vendors to set up, and saw to it that the bagpipe parade went off without a hitch. If there's something you really want, I'm not necessarily saying you should lie to get it, but I am saying you're probably lying to yourself if you're not going after it. Because so often when we say we're unqualified for something, what we're really saying is that we're too scared to try it, not that we can't do it. Most of the time, it's not lack of experience that's holding us back, but rather the lack of determination to do what we need to do to be successful. We put so much energy into coming up with excuses why we can't be, do, or have the things we want, and designing the perfect distractions to keep us from our dreams. Imagine how far we'd get if we just shut up and used all that energy to go for it instead. Here's the good news. 1. We all know way more than we give ourselves credit for knowing. 2. We're drawn to things we're naturally good at, which counts more than having a graduate degree in the subject, by the way. 3. There's no better teacher than necessity. 4. Passion trumps fear. In hindsight, I realized that I was more qualified for that job than I thought. I'm a big sister, which means I'm naturally bossy. I love throwing parties, and I can talk to anyone, even 76-year-old Russian men who don't speak English and are freaking out because they can't find their tights. I went on to do many more things that I was quote-unquote unqualified for, but I also wasted plenty of time pretending I wasn't ready to do some of the other things I really wanted to do. And, shockingly, the times I jumped in and went for it were way more fun than the times I spent sitting around quote-unquote getting ready and doing nothing instead. Whether it's an online dating profile you're not ready to post, or a trip you want to take after you lose 10 pounds, or a business you want to start as soon as you save enough money, just start. Now. Do whatever it takes. You could get run over by the ice cream man tomorrow. One time I spent an entire month preparing my office to write a book. I got just the right chair, put the desk in the perfect place by the window, organized all the materials I needed, and then reorganized them 3 times. Cleaned the place until you could perform surgery on the floor, and then proceeded to write the entire thing at my kitchen table. Procrastination is one of the most popular forms of self-sabotage because it's really easy. There are so many fun things you can do in order to procrastinate, and there's no lack of other people who are totally psyched to procrastinate with you. And while it can be super fun in the moment, eventually the naughtiness buzz wears off, and you're sitting there a few years later, feeling like a loser, wondering why the hell you still haven't gotten your act together. And why other people you know are getting big fat promotions at their jobs, or taking trips around the world, or talking about the latest orphanage they've opened in Cambodia on NPR. If you're serious about changing your life, you'll find a way. If you're not, you'll find an excuse. In the interest of getting you where you want to go in this lifetime, here are some tried and true tips to help you stop procrastinating. 1. Remember that done is better than perfect. Just get the damn website up already, or send out the mailer, or make the sales calls, or book the gig even though you're not totally ready yet. Nobody else cares or will probably even notice that everything isn't 100% perfect. And quite honestly, nothing ever will be 100% perfect anyway, so you might as well start now. There's no better way to get things done than to already be rolling along. Momentum is a wonderful thing, not to mention highly underrated, so get off your ass and get started now. 2. Notice where you stop. When you're working on whatever you're working on, or whatever you're pretending to work on, where exactly do you stop? Is it when you have to do the research? Make the scary phone calls? Figure out how to raise the money? Right after you start? When you have to commit? When it starts getting good? Right before it takes off? Before you even get out of bed? If you can pinpoint the precise moment that you say, "Screw it, I'm out of here," you can prepare yourself for hitting the oil slick by hiring coaches or assistants, or by psyching yourself up or delegating that particular part of it out, or by removing known distractions. For example, let's say you discover that every time you sit down to make calls and try and book yourself a speaking gig, you mysteriously find yourself pulled into Facebook for hours. Here's your solution. Turn off the internet, or go someplace to make your calls where you can't get online, like a park, or your car, or Antarctica. And then decide that you have to make 5 calls before you can check back in and see if anyone commented on the picture you posted of your cat eating a potato chip. 3. Make a bet with someone mean. A good way to make yourself accountable is to make a bet with someone who will hold you to it. They must have no mercy. They can't coddle you or understand that you tried your best. You want the kind of person who will make you feel humiliated even before the excuses start to come out your mouth, or who will show up at your doorstep with a burlap sack, a big rock, and a blindfold should you attempt to wiggle out of paying your debt. And make sure you bet something that's painful to lose, but not too unrealistic. For example, you could bet someone $1,000 that you'll have the first chapter of your book written by a certain date. Make it a payable amount that you really don't want to pay, but that's barely within your reach. Then write the check out to him, include the payment date, and keep it over your desk to remind you what's in store if you don't get the job done. And if you really want to up the stakes, tell him that if you don't meet your deadline, instead of giving him the money, you'll donate the $1,000 to a group or cause that makes your flesh crawl. Personally, I find this kind of horror works wonders for my self-discipline. 4. Own it and work with it. If you're the kind of person who blows everything off until the last minute, and you know this about yourself, why waste your time freaking out while you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing? Go to the damn beach, have a cocktail, and when the pressure's on, get down to business. There's nothing worse than time wasted pretending to work or stressing out while trying to have fun. No work gets done and no fun is had. It's the worst of both worlds. Figure out how much time you truly need to get the job done and go do something else until the clock starts ticking. 5. Love yourself right now, wherever you're at.